A film 7 years in the making. I kid you not. Well, we're finally here. It's January. You know what that means. What is up, Flick fans? Welcome back to my channel. The King's Daughter is finally hitting theaters after 7 years this weekend, and we're going to talk about it with very little marketing, and I didn't really know that much about the film. I was nervous, so did The King's Daughter pay off on my lofty expectations? Let's talk. So, a king's quest for immortality leads him to capture and steal a mermaid's life force, a move that is further complicated by his illegitimate daughter's discovery of the creature. So the star of this film is Scodelario, who I genuinely like a standout performance in something like Crawl, and she was great in the Maze Runner movies. We also have someone like a Pierce Brosnan, a William Hurt, Benjamin Walker. Brosnan plays the king, someone who is so determined he feels as if he is destined to have eternal life, and the only way to get that is from this mermaid that is forming sort of a connection with Brosnan's daughter, who kind of comes into the picture almost immediately at the beginning of the film, and there is a backstory to that father-daughter relationship that we don't get very much of. There's also so much to the relationships around those two, and kind of everything culminating and building to the point to where I said to myself while watching, they could make a movie, they could go back and make a prequel film just setting up things that we see in this one. And it's not that it's confusing while you're watching, but there were points in the film to where it was happening so quick and we didn't get the proper character buildup, where I said, you know what? Either I'm not getting everything I need to be getting from this story, so it's just not speaking to me, or the writing is kind of bad. And I'm actually going to lean in that direction because there is just no depth to these characters within that first act. Now, as we progress, there's a romance that sparks between these two younger characters that actually features some nice chemistry. And this being a period piece, you get those sort of cliches as we go, but they never fully impact your enjoyment of the movie as it's happening. And that romance, that chemistry, and everything with those two was actually quite nice. And even when we go down to where this mermaid is being held, what she is able to do in that information, it's not doing a great job of telling us that, but we can make some assumptions along the way, okay. And you also start the movie out with a nice narration by Julie Andrews, and most of the time that would annoy me, but it's Julie Andrews, and I needed information because this movie was not going to provide it to me. And as we go, you see what the biggest problem with this film actually is, and it's not the lack of information, even though that's a massive problem. The fact that everything is going so fast, moving so quick, from the pacing to the editing, and talking about editing. I mean, this is a film that had to be edited in a way that allowed you to move from one scene to the other effortlessly, flawlessly, to where you were on board with the buildup of this romance, the fallout between her and her father, everything that comes with this story. But it never fully hits you emotionally because of the way that the movie is handled. There's a good story in here. And that's not just me saying this to be nice to the film. I genuinely believe there's a good story in here. And Pierce Brosnan, he is capable of that charisma. And I actually really like Kaya's character here, and I will defend that. There are moments where she is playing music, and she just wants to do what she feels is the right thing. She is compassionate, and there is an emotional attachment there that comes mostly from her performance, not even the writing behind her character, even though it did a better job than the rest of the film. But it wasn't enough to save what was surrounding these characters. It's just a story not only that we've seen countless times before, but the way it's handled. There were moments where they could have prolonged a scene or two, and sure, that makes the movie last longer, but if I get more of an emotional connection, that's fine. Don't cut away from these integral moments. Even down to a dance sequence between her and her father where he's kind of teaching her how to dance because she just came into the picture. I wish that would have been explained a bit more. But the camera goes cut, close-up, wide shot, shaky cam, camera movement, unnecessary camera movements all throughout the movie. Even the king and his men riding horses around this fountain. We get a shot here, a shot there, and it continues to cut. And you have like 10 shots. It reminds me of that sequence in Taken 3 where Liam Neeson is jumping over the fence, and it takes about 12 cuts just to get us that one moment. There were 5 to 6 scenes in here where I felt the exact same way. Speaking on the technical aspects, the set pieces are genuinely great, and there is a moment of CGI at the end of the film. I won't spoil what that is, but it looks so much better than the rest of this movie. But when you look at something as simple as the color correction, the color grading throughout the film, everything is just overly vibrant, and it makes it look cheap. You're taking these beautiful set pieces and these backgrounds that would otherwise look solid, and you are making it look like a TV movie as opposed to a cinematic experience. This is a cinematic type film. It's a fantasy. We're dealing with immortality. These ideas are great, but when you give me a king who wants to be immortal, and we don't really have a reason other than him wanting to be immortal, how am I going to connect to that story? How am I going to connect to the story between he and his daughter when we don't really get an idea as to the why that was the case in the first place? Everything that we get from there on out is okay, but nothing is fleshed out. The movie itself goes so quick, and the score, something that was surprisingly somewhat epic at points, a genuinely solid score for the film they were giving us, is undermined by the soundtrack and taking modern music, placing it in that time period, and it just doesn't work. You're giving us a really romantic and emotional moment towards the end of the film. You play this song, I'm out. And guess what? They played that song. Before I give you guys my score, I want to say thank you so much for watching this video. Drop your thumbs up if you enjoy this content. And if you disagree with me, that is absolutely okay. Tell me why you enjoyed this movie down below. But for me, it is a rushed story, and the editing does the film no favor. Scodelario does a nice job, but everything surrounding her needs fleshing out, and my score for this film is a 28%. It just didn't work for what it was trying to be, what it could have been, maybe with better direction or better writing across the board. You know, a fantasy movie that we've seen before, but fun. Unfortunately, I didn't necessarily feel that way. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for more content this weekend, and I'll see you soon.